think about this. My brother-in-law, they just had a Super Bowl football party. They all got COVID. They all got COVID because they all wanted to be together. They all wanted to be together. And again, I'm not saying that it's not important, but my point is that I don't want to be in this no more. And so now I know that God has set me apart from youth for this time. And it's only taken me 60 years to come to this realization. 62. That's all it took. God, that ain't long. I know people are older than me that are still stupid. Because they're still trying to live their world. How do I know it? As I told my pastor, I've got every reason in the world to not believe in God because God did not fit my image of what God was supposed to look like. That does not say that God is not that image. What that says is that God is not going to try to fit in my image. Y'all understand that? God ain't going to try. God ain't going to try to say, oh, money, I'll be your buddy, I'll be your pal. Well, I'll be your best friend. I'll do these things for you. I'll do all these things. But once you find out that when you start surrendering, and it was like 3 weeks ago in my life that I said, okay, God, I don't understand why you're taking this path from me. Because I knew that I had it in my mind, this answer of the path that I should go on. And all of a sudden, God started dismantling it, taking it piece apart. And I'm like, it's quite one thing, God, you want to fire me at 62. I get this, okay. You want me to move on at 62? I'm fine. But at least I want to know where I'm going to go. Then all of a sudden he starts taking all where I'm going to go off. And I'm like, you know what he says? Who you trust? Do you trust me? Do you trust me? How do I know now that I can trust God? Because I could trust God as a child. I trusted God as a child. I trusted God that, you know what I would do? I knew I wasn't going to die. As long as I didn't do anything stupid, I knew I wasn't going to die. You know how I knew I wasn't going to die? Because I knew that in the end, I would have to face the rapture. That I would be caught in this thing. I knew I wouldn't die. Not until time God says it's time. Now, mind you, I did try a couple times. I did try to tempt the fate. And I got close several times. Really close to dying. But I knew that if I stayed true, do you know one reason why I kind of wanted to die? Because as a child, I tried to hide from it. Why as a child was I so afraid of the rapture? That I think that if I hid under all these concrete blocks and put this Visqueen and dirt on it, God couldn't see through this thing and I wouldn't have to deal with this thing. Because I knew my death was involved in this thing. I knew my death was involved in this thing. There are the witnesses. Just remember that right there. There are the witnesses that are in the street struck down. We are going this direction. It is coming. Too much proof is out there that this society, that this world is at a termination point. What's important is for us to decide where do we want to be. We are in the process in our life right now of all these things getting stripped aside because I said, okay, God, you want to take all these things from me, all of my security, all these things from me, and point me on the path that brings you the most honor. Use me. Use me. That's all I want to be, is you. He set me apart. He equipped me for all these things. But it's only now that I'm walking in the full understanding of it, and it's even getting better. I'm praying that through this time, that you guys will be able to say, why are you trusting Him? And as I told my pastor, I said, you know what? I said, I had made so many vows before God. I've broken so many vows before God. Even if, because there's scripture that will back this thing up, if I have no chance, and if I am one of them people that he says, depart from me, you worker of iniquity, for I never knew you. Okay. But one thing is I will guarantee you I'm going to do, I'm going to give it my best shot to being the best person I can be. He says, for I am a holy God, and my people will be what? Yeah. What is a holy concept? What is holy? In other words, to live without blame. Well, all of our blame is centered upon what we want to be. There are people who live in a world and live in a society that they have no concept of God. My father-in-law, I'm going to close on this. My father-in-law, he and I were talking about how everything's happened during this week and how it's all been just so crazy. He said, son, and my father-in-law is one of the best men that I know, if not the best man that I know. He said, son, he says, I can see where you could believe that. I can see where you believe that. And I said, well, Danny, I said, do you realize something? I said, I ain't going to live in a world where I don't. He said, what? I said, I'm not going to live in a world. I can see where you would say, I can see where you can see that God is doing this thing. I choose to live in a world that my God is everywhere around me constantly. That every step he has laid out for me, he has planned for me. I choose every day to have this faith, David, that there's something bigger going on. That no matter what happens, God is in the midst. I choose to live in existence. I choose to live in an existence to where if I try to text Artie that, hey, I need you to talk to me. I said, it's important. He never got it. I texted, how did I pick up my phone action and text an obsolete number to Artie and send him a message? And you know what God kept telling me during all this time? He says, do not get angry. Don't get upset. I want to go to work and I want to choke somebody at work. That's what Monty wants to do. I want to render evil for evil. I want to hurt those who hurt me and my family. I wanted to do all these things. And you know, every time I wanted to do it, God said, no. And you know what Monty did? The best I could do was say no. I still failed in some areas, but I got some areas right. I ended up getting my father-in-law to go with me. And if you ever go anywhere with Danny Thorne is just like that one guy. He's not intimidating, he's not anything, but Danny Thorne walks with such of the presence of God on him, there's like zero confrontation. And that was my prayer. That God, all I want to do is get up there, get my tools, and leave. And because of the person that I took, I said, but what I didn't understand is that, okay, God, why did Artie not call me? Why? He says, don't be upset. Don't judge what you don't understand. Later, I see that he was not the perfect person to go with me. See, I believe in a God that can cause you to text a wrong number so the wrong person would not be there with you at the wrong time. That's how I choose to believe. Because if I did not believe in this, several years ago, when we had lost everything, spent forward the whole 9 yards, I remember being out there outside with Amber, and I said, Amber, I don't understand this, but But I cannot and will not believe in a God that does not have a plan. A few weeks ago, Amber and I were sitting and we're looking at everything that we're surrounded by. And I said, isn't it amazing that what everyone else would have took as tragedy, Lance, everyone else would have seen as like the world was coming to the end. What we caught is that God, that's the only way he can make us move from this point is from this cutting off. Amber and I said, we thought there was more time. How many people, when they die, are going to say, we thought there was more time? We thought. God instantly cut it off and says, look, you're not going to ever prepare for it. You're not going to hear me. We had been preparing, but not at the rate we're preparing now. But you know, isn't it funny that the last time we happened and where we're at now is worldly different, isn't it?
Yeah, we both lost our job that day. I still have a job.
And so the thing is that I had to build a fence. I had to build a fence to keep the dogs from going outside. I serve a God that I remember looking at this wood because I found a wood that fit really within its purpose. Found everything that fit within the purpose. And I was looking at this wood that I thought I had enough to finish out this detail. And you've ever ran out of wood or ran out of, when they built our house in Greenbrier, you always start at the front of the house bricking it and go around back. That way if you run out, you put the new brick in the back. That way you can hide the blemishes and stuff like that. They started at the back of our house and went forward. Right at the front of our house, guess what they ran out of? Brick. And it didn't match. So here I am, I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I've used a special wood. Do you realize that I had the absolute perfect amount of wood to do that job? Perfect amount. The perfect amount to do that job. I'll overlay this because the next part of it that I did, guess what? I need one board. A fool would say, well, God, you gave me enough there. Why didn't you give me enough here? Mm-hmm. I praise God for that, and I'm not worried about this. Does that make sense? Yeah. I praise God for what he does do, and I don't worry about what he don't do. That's right. Because he's got something else in plan. I choose to live that life. I want you guys to have that faith. So what I would like for you guys to do is, Axton said, so if y'all don't like this homework idea, blame Axton.
Okay, I said because we were doing a Bible study. We had a Bible study thing at school, and I was like, I could maybe.
Hey, meet me out at the sign after this.
So,
I thought I could maybe do it.
So for me, Axton, my Bible study and your assignment is that you find this verse that means something to you in the Bible. For me, to know that God set me apart before I was even born. Because that explains why I'm different now. Why I believe what I believe now. Why I've been equipped to believe what I believe now. And maybe you guys will see it as well, that God had equipped y'all from before you was even born. The problem is that I had to get all this other crap out of my life. And you know how I can tell that I have actually arrived at this point? You know how I can tell that I've arrived at nirvana? You know how I can tell?
Because the trouble's still bonding.
No. My wife said it. Amber, how did you tell that I had changed? Listen to this. Listen to this.
Y'all have to know. Mine don't eat hamburger helper, frozen pizzas, anything like that. It's never been his thing. He just
That's what I was raised on.
He just don't eat.
That's what I was raised on.
I've never kept any of that stuff at my house. Well, I happened to have a frozen pizza the other night, and he was hungry, and I was like, well, I got this frozen pizza. He's like, what does it taste like? Like, I don't know. My parents think it's good. So I threw it in the oven. I was cleaning up the dishes, and I was sitting there thinking, he hates that whole pizza, or well, not the whole pizza, but he ate all he wanted. Never said a word about not liking it, complaining, or anything. So I just thought that was a big change in him. Sorry.
I'll even further that. by her saying what she just said, seeing a contentment on your face because of not rocking an orange jumpsuit because you killed somebody, which you would rock with a beard and everything, you know what I'm saying? But you didn't go there, and there's that discipline. That's what sets you apart. That's how everybody should be. That's why I said. But I seen that, and what Amber just reported. You would have never ate that stinking pizza. You'd have complained about it. You'd have done because you're upset about this. Blah blah blah. You go into it, but you didn't. You ate it. And you was content. Like that wasn't too bad because I'm not stressed out on this. That kind of makes sense and everything. And that's what I see the contentment over you. That fair enough? It's the word of the day.
So,
No, I ain't. I'm getting a big. I'm not 70 yet, so I'm not elder. You gotta be 70 before you have wisdom.
so next week, your question is this: what is your testimony? What drives you? What convicts you? What bothers you? Where you go wrong? Where you going right? Because if you want to know where you're going to go, you got to know where you're at.
Yep.
So your testimony, your assignment action is, what is your testimony? How do you know that God's called you apart? How do you know that God separated you? How do you know these things? What makes you understand God? Action is like I watch you and I hear your answers and I hear the insight that you put them in. Why do you think God done that to you? Why do you think God made you this way? So, I don't know how I'm answering, how I'm asking you to do this, but I want some of you just a minute, 30 seconds. Tell me how you know. How do you know? I just know. That's my testimony. I just know. I don't think. I don't believe. I don't hope. I know. I know. How do I know that? Because I know. Does that make sense? And if your testimony is that you know,
You ain't wavering.
then guess what? You won't waver. Nothing will happen to you. It won't make no difference. If I die tomorrow, well, why am I grieving about dying? God bless you. If I'm going to go somewhere else, then what's the point? Why am I worried? Why do I worry? So, think about how we're going to do this. Be praying for me because, again, next week we're going to be talking about the Bible. How do you know? So, we're going to say, I'm going to ask, what is your testimony? And then, why the Bible? You can choose either one of them. You can choose either one of them. But you kids understand something. Anthony, I know that you don't know these things, and I know that, okay? But as a kid, I knew. I knew. Y'all want to hear a messed up conversation? You want to hear a little kid get into a conversation about the Catholic Church in the end times. Yeah, I did that in Sunday school class. Because you realize when I was a kid, you know where my Sunday school class was here? My Sunday school class was right there. You know what met in that Sunday school class? The adults. Actually, I was your age, and I was in the Sunday school class with the adults. With the adults. We had a kids' Sunday school class. Guess where I didn't go? Because I wanted to think like an adult. I wanted to know because this guy knew something. And he wasn't your conventional Sunday school teacher. He knew something. And I wanted to know something. I wanted the answers. So hopefully we can find some answers together. Hopefully you'll be able to answer somebody, well, why do you believe in the Bible? Okay? Why is this? Why is that? Why do you believe in God? Because that's what your testimony is anyway. Your testimony is why do you believe in God? Just my thoughts. So, the last thing, you got to understand this. If you give a testimony of why you believe in God, and and I was asked this question about, well, why I would have done this and I would have done that. I would